Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to First Parish Unitarian Universalist in Medfield. So pleased that you can be with us today, and welcome also to all of you who are streaming in from home today as well. This congregation first gathered in 1651. This historic meeting house was built in 1789 on the unceded ancestral lands of the Nipmuc tribe. It has come to our attention from our local historian that while we're right on the edge of the Wampanoag, we're just in the Nipmuc territory. So that's a change, but as you know, history is always a changing dynamic. Friends, welcome. Welcome to this place. Here we search for truth and understanding. Here we celebrate life and we contemplate its mysteries. Here we share healing and wholeness. So whoever you are, wherever you come from, whomever you love, we welcome you to this congregation.
A Community of Faith by Judith L. Quarles. At this hour, in small towns and big cities, in single rooms and ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations are also lighting a flaming chalice. As we light our chalice today, let us remember that we are part of a great community of faith. May this dancing flame inspire us to fill our lives with the Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth.
Although there remains too much evidence of the world breaking apart at our coastlines, at congressional hearings, at kitchen tables, inside the quiet places of your heart and mine, there resides still the seeds, the longing to return to this knowing, the knowing that we belong to one another, to this earth, to this life, to remember ourselves and all of our lost pieces, beloved in ways that cannot be undone, to dwell here in this healing, this hope, this wholeness is our practice. It's our resistance. Even in rage, we refuse to relinquish gratitude. We refuse to give up on joy. Friends, come, let us worship together. Please rise as you are willing and able for our opening hymn, Morning Has Broken, number 38 in your gray hymnal. Hey, you sound pretty good this morning. So I am sorry to say that Sissy Hall Allen, who is going to lead our Time for All Ages, is sick with a cold. So you're going to be stuck with me. So any kiddos or young at heart who want a better view, you can come up front if you are so moved. All right. So, how's everybody doing this morning? Good. I am wondering if you have ever in school or with your friends thought about having like an imaginary personal bubble around your body. And it makes you a little bit uncomfortable when somebody gets too close and they breaks inside of that bubble. Have you? Yeah. How does that make you feel if somebody bursts that little personal bubble and gets really close to you? Mad? Yeah. And grown-ups can talk too if they just raise your hand because it's important. Yeah, Bo. Calm. Makes you feel calm. Interesting. Yeah. Uncomfortable. Yeah. So who do you allow or who makes you feel comfortable if they do burst that bubble and say give you a hug or something? Is there anybody in your life who doesn't make you feel uncomfortable if they do that? Your mom? Okay. Yep. Yeah. Your friends? Yep. Would it feel weird if Joe Schmo walking down the street you've never met before came over and gave you a hug? That would feel different, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, so I wonder why sometimes those feelings make you feel uncomfortable if somebody gets too close. Anybody have an idea? Shirley?
Boundaries.
Boundaries. What is that? I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
It means personal boundaries around being locked.
Personal boundaries are being walked over. Yep. They're bursting our bubble. That's right. You know, sometimes it does feel good to be touched or hugged by somebody who we love and we trust and we care about, right? Sometimes that feels comforting and good. If you skin your knee and your dad comes in, gives you a hug and bandages you up, that can feel good. Sometimes it doesn't. But you know what? Sometimes, I don't know if anybody's had this experience. Has anybody burst your bubble without even asking if they can? Yeah? Feels a little weird, right? Sometimes it's even like your grandpa or somebody you know, and it feels strange, right? Yeah. So I am wondering, what would you do if your sister came and pulled your hair? Anybody? Oh. Be mad? Yep. What might you say to your sister, for example, if she came over and pulled your hair? Yeah. That hurts. That's really good. Yeah. Anything else? Stop. Good. Anything else? That's great. There's something you might have heard before, and this is something you can remember. You can say no, then go and tell someone you trust. Has anybody heard that before? Yeah. It's a really important thing because sometimes people, even if they're not trying to be mean, sometimes they are trying to be mean. But either way, if somebody does something that makes you feel uncomfortable, you can say, what? Then, anybody? Yes. If someone were to hurt you at school on the playground, you could say, then you can. All right, we're gonna do a little demonstration here. All right, Bo.
No. Go. Tell someone you trust.
Well, no. Well, tell your mom. Tell your mom and your dad.
What happened?
This.
All right. So does everybody remember that? Say, then. Amen. Great job. All right. Thank you. You can stay here if you'd like, or you can hang out for Joys and Sorrows. Now I'd invite up Ann Cunningham, a member of our pastoral care team, to lead us in our candles of joy and sorrow.
Good morning. Now is the time in the service where you're invited up to share any joys and sorrows you might have and to light a candle if you'd like.
And for all of those we've lost, perhaps recently or long ago, I'll now light our candle of remembrance. All right, well, now it is time for all the children to head off to religious exploration. So as they go, let's sing them out. Please join me now in a spirit of prayer and meditation. Oh, Spirit of love, Spirit of life, that presence that we can feel within and around and among us. We ask for your calming presence to be with us here now. So many joys and sorrows spoken here in this space. Joys for birthdays and celebrations. Joys of pride for our children and all they've become. Deep sorrows for gun violence, for those in our community who are sick. Candles of gratitude for all those willing to perhaps give a pint of blood to the one who could use it on Tuesday. We're so grateful for this community of support, of love, for all of those fellow travelers who are here this morning, making this journey of life just a bit easier. This morning, we become aware that this is a hard month. This is the month when we honor sexual assault, when we raise up this very real epidemic that's plaguing our world, has for far too long and continues to. Some might say this isn't a topic for church. I would say that our faith calls us to act for justice, to advocate for the marginalized, for the abused, for the hurt, for the broken. As people of faith, we must awaken to this injustice. We must learn to open our eyes, even if it's hard. For in America, every 9 seconds, someone is sexually assaulted. 1 out of 6 women in this country have been the victim or attempted or completed rape. The same is true for 1 out of 33 men. And tragically, the vast majority of sexual assaults occurs to young people. So with prayerful hearts today, even though it might be painful, we pledge to open our eyes, our ears, and our hearts. This is what our faith calls us to do. Let's hold all of this in our hearts as we enter into a time of silent meditation. Well, this morning, our first speaker, some of you had the pleasure of meeting on your way in this morning, is Dr. Nancy Nienhaus. She is the VP for Planning on the board at our neighboring UU Church down the street in Reading, Massachusetts. She did her doctorate at Harvard Divinity School, focusing on intimate partner violence and sexual assault. Although she's retired now, She spent her career working as Dean of Graduate Schools for students and as a faculty member. She has worked in this capacity at various places, including Harvard Divinity School, Simmons University, and Andover Newton Theological School, where I went to seminary, and I graduated there in 2018. And I am not shy to say that Nancy was one of my favorite professors. She taught a fantastic class called Justice Matters on all types of justice issues, as well as a class called When Home is a War Zone, Pastoral Care and Theological Issues on Domestic Violence. And every single one of my classmates, without fail, were surprised that that particular class wasn't absolutely required for graduation. You needed to take a class in that area, but it was so impactful to all of us. We learned so much about the prevalence of these issues that we felt that it is critically important. So I am so pleased that she's here today. She has unique expertise in areas surrounding intimate partner violence, domestic abuse, and sexual assault. So without further ado, we are so blessed to invite Nancy Nienhuis to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I love these old churches. I mean, they come with all their headaches of plumbing and so forth, but what a wonderful space to be together this morning. It's really an honor to be invited to be with you by Reverend Egan, who was a tremendous student, let me tell you. Yeah, that doesn't surprise you. And services like this, where you're dedicating the time to the issue of sexual assault, are extremely rare. So I really commend you for doing this, for being willing to understand this as part of what a community of faith does. Sexual assault rocks a person to their core. It raises deep issues of self-worth, spirituality, and more. It has physical, psychological, and emotional effects, and survivors need support when they're in this critical time in their lives. And it's interesting that research actually shows that survivors who have a supportive faith community do better than those who don't. They get through PTSD a little bit smoother. They don't have often the depth of some of the results of assault that others do. This doesn't mean that sexual assault doesn't haunt survivors often throughout their lives. It's not something that 3 years you're done. But it does mean that you all have a critical role to play in supporting survivors of sexual assault. And given the statistics on sexual assault, there are survivors in this congregation as there are in every single congregation across the nation. RAINN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, which is the largest anti-sexual assault organization in the nation, tells us that, as Reverend Dave shared, every 9 seconds someone in the United States is sexually assaulted. Every 9 minutes, that person is a child. 1 out of every 6 women, as Dave shared, 1 out of every 33 men. So we know that if you have a gathering, even a small gathering of people, you're going to have survivors there. 90% are female. 1 in 9 girls, 1 in 20 boys under the age of 18 have experienced sexual abuse or sexual assault. 82% of all victims under the age of 18 are female. And females aged 16 to 19, which are in high school, maybe a first year in college, are 4 times more likely than the general population to be victims of rape, attempted rape, or sexual assault. But of course, those who survive sexual assault are not statistics. They are our sisters and daughters and brothers. They are relatives and neighbors and fellow members of this church. The difference between you and many other churches is that you're talking about it. And talking about it is critical to healing for survivors in your midst. And just so you know, people don't lie about sexual assault. The FBI says that 98% of accounts of sexual assault are true. So if you want to err on the side of whether to believe or not believe someone who has the courage to tell you that this happened to them, you better believe them, because 98% of the time it's true. Most people are sexually assaulted by someone they know and trust, not by strangers. 1/3 of victims are assaulted by family members. 59% were assaulted by acquaintances. And many perpetrators in childhood sexual abuse are in a position of trust or responsibility for that child's care. Could be a family member, could be a teacher, could be a staff person or member of a congregation, that's quite common, or of a synagogue or mosque or what have you. Could be coaches or even other children, because sibling abuse is also something that happens. Unfortunately, shame is one of the most common feelings survivors have. And that reaction is due in part to the fact that throughout history, and even in this present day, women and girls in particular are often blamed for sexual assault as though it was their fault. Those within our midst who have been assaulted need to know that their church families are not embarrassed or ashamed of them, not afraid to hear from them. They need to know that we are not afraid to talk about it, to hear about it. Because, as Reverend Dave put so elegantly, that kind of listening people into speech is a deep commitment that we have as a covenant of church people, that we have when we say that we're going to care about each other and enact justice in each other's lives and in the lives of others throughout the world. Silence leaves perpetrators unchallenged. Silence leaves survivors feeling that they've been abandoned. I'm so glad that you have two people willing to talk with you today and share their stories. Doing so is a real act of trust and faith in you as a church. Faith that you will be with them, that you can be with them as they share this most difficult part of their journeys. I'm so glad to be here with you as this important thing happens.
Thank you, Nancy. Now I would invite David and Hillary Maxon forward.
As some of you know, many years ago, my child was molested by a trusted church member here in First Parish. We've maintained our silence out of deference to Hillary. Hillary is ready to tell her story, and Diane and I are ready and here to support her at this new step in her journey. This is difficult material, and you, dear audience, are welcome to step out now or at any time during the service if you feel uncomfortable. Child sexual abuse is a deep secret, in part because we want to protect the privacy of the young victims. Flowing from that core belief, talk about sexual abuse is often confined to whispers and gossip. As you can see, we have persevered and remain members of First Parish, so do not consider this story as one to blame our loving congregation. In rather dry clinical terms, what you hear from Hillary and me today can be a case study, a snapshot in the long echo that abuse puts on a community and, more importantly, a child. 26 years ago, I gave a victim impact statement in court. The judge was considering a slap on the wrist for a septuagenarian first-time offender, which I highlight with air quotes because these behaviors do not suddenly appear in old age. Who knows how many silent victims preceded Hillary? I felt my role as dad included standing up for my daughter. For the victim impact statement, I was standing in a courtroom, teeming with people waiting on multiple other cases on the docket that day. I was huddled at the judge's bench with an assistant district attorney and a victim advocate, as well as the abuser and his attorney. It was going to be a plea deal, and my testimony would influence the severity of the punishment in that deal. My family was sitting in back, watching, but not hearing. In my statement, I outlined the breach of trust and the violation of the very core of my child's humanity. I then recited the many times to come in Hillary's life that would be triggers of her horrible experience. I encouraged the judge not to take this lightly, and I said, "My child wants to know that when grown-ups do bad things, they pay the price. She must be given a message from the court that wrong is wrong and you don't slip away with a wink and a nod." The judge settled on a higher penalty on the abuser, but a sentence can't wipe away the hurt. Over the years, many of my predictions came true, and more so. Hillary would tell you such trauma can have lasting effects that crop up in ways that can be subtle or overt. As a dad, the guilt is never far away. How could I have let this happen to my child? As a dad, I felt I had to be there for my child. I suppressed my grief, and I strove to provide safety, security, and solace as best I could. This reckoning today, a quarter century later, has rekindled my grief and given me the opportunity to process what has been suppressed in me for so long. Hillary is at a point in her journey that she's ready to tell her story and help others do two things. First, prevention requires a conscious effort and open dialogue about these difficult issues. Second, supporting our survivors requires intention and attention. Dialogue is key because the effects of trauma are as individual as we are. Hillary, I love you, I'm proud of you, and we're listening.
Well, thanks, Dad. For those who don't know me, my name is Hillary. I am the graduating class for the coming of age group from 2002. I want to start off by first thanking the parents, friends that are now parents. I grew up here for being protective and selective about questions regarding what happened to me in this building about 25 years ago. As I share a little bit of what I've gone through, please refrain from calling me brave. I had one choice in how to feel, and I can assure you it wasn't that. It is my hope in sharing what I went through back in 1998, it would help build a community of support where one was lacking for both myself and my parents. And the only way to do that is becoming more fluid and talking about uncomfortable things. Each one of you sitting here today walked past the exact spot where I became a victim of sexual assault by FPUU member Ray Warburton, age 70-something. I was around 10. I mentioned his name because we shouldn't protect him anymore. Granted, he's been dead for 20 years. This is one of the few exceptions I will make for speaking ill of the dead. I will say that I do share some good experience here, like the chocolate auctions, Emperor Onion fairs, and the ever-popular Medfield Day events. But I will forever remember Mr. Warburton's hands, my purple sweatpants, and wondering what the heck slacks were and why was he mad at me for not knowing. He lied to me, saying he had a surprise for me upstairs. I remember the look of shock, disappointment, and fear on my parents' face when I told them what happened. I wasn't supposed to be robbed of my identity, my sense of self-worth, and all in a matter of minutes. The courts did their things, being connected to counseling and, in my view, forced into more talks with male strangers in private about the trauma that I had endured. I felt my life was under a microscope, and I didn't have the understanding, the voice, or the patience to keep talking about how traumatic the event was. A few years later, I was told by my parents that Mr. Warburton had passed away, and my reaction at the time was, good, followed by me forcing that chapter closed and moving on, or so I had hoped. The Warburton name left its mark in spirit in this building, and it's time the talks about it started and the stigma about it ends. I can't say I'll ever have closure in my life from that event. I certainly won't get that Hallmark version of a story ending where I get to finally confront my abusers, because it's taken me years to find some sort of stability to begin healing. But once I finally got myself into a stable environment, I chose to resume counseling. And I'm learning how to understand myself, and of all of the diagnosis alphabet soup I could recite, the one I want to talk to you today about is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, also abbreviated CPTSD. That is defined by a system of symptom clusters mainly resembling an enhanced PTSD symptoms filled with shame, feeling permanently damaged, ineffective, feelings of threat, social withdrawal, despair, hostility, and physical symptoms, along with a diversity from the previous personality. CPTSD also means to me that the visual processes in my brain reactivate when something reminds me of a traumatic event. Take, for instance, in 2009, Pixar released the movie Up. I'll admit that I've watched it a few times uncomfortably, and here's why. In the movie, the main character, called Carl Fredricksen, is the main character in the movie paired with a child maybe 10 years old. Plus, the way that Carl is portrayed is a dead ringer for Ray Warburton. At one point, First Parish had a youth program that bridged a gap in generation, pairing elders with younger generations. And at the time, I believe the name was Golden Friends or something ironic like that. From a young age, probably not soon enough, we tell kids that someone makes you uncomfortable, then tell an adult. I can think of multiple times in my life where that has actually failed me. One such instance happened here at First Parish, and until now, I think it's been forgotten. There was a time I had done some babysitting for a family of the congregation, and I guess their son had become so fascinated with me, he ran around during coffee hour circling me and smacking my butt. So after telling him to stop repeatedly with no change, I told an adult. And this adult had the approach of, oh, he's just doing what boys do. And I thought, well, that was dumb. And I'll be damned if I'm assaulted again in this building. So I waited for this kid to come around again. As he did, I pushed him to the ground. I was then chastised for being mean to this kid, which confused me because I had done everything right. I had said no. I had gone to a parent, and then I was left with nothing. Again, I was lied to. I had a room full of people that should have understood why it wasn't okay to enable his behavior and dismiss me. Even as a child, I should have been a valued member of society. Let my testimony show that it's easy to instill and dismiss the idea of personal safety and bodily autonomy in children. We expect kids to be kids, but then suddenly the next leaders of tomorrow with the ideology, it is what it is. To this day, I will strongly react to anyone approaching me from behind, especially if they are male. Body contact in any context for me is still an iffy thing. Take, for instance, hugs. I am not a hugger. Holding me in a long hug can actually trigger a paralyzing anxiety attack. More recently, I started seeing this great guy. He's a sheriff. More specifically, he's a crisis negotiator. And he unknowingly put me in a position where I ended up having a panic attack. It's not what you think. I just could not back out of his arms in a hug. He recognized I was somewhere else. I lost my ability to speak, then I lost my place of where I was in time and space. He recognized I was somewhere else, and he did what he thought was appropriate to get me out of it, which backfired, and made it harder for me to adjust back into reality. The same way I couldn't escape Mr. Warburton, I couldn't back out of a friendly hug, and again, I'm reminded of the first time I felt trapped. So after learning what I've been through and what this life is for me now, here's the part where you come in. You can do a few simple things to help comfort those that have been through or are going through trauma. First, please don't apologize to those that have been through trauma for their experience. Although appreciated, the apology is empty if not coming from the abuser. The majority of us won't hear that from our abuser, and I certainly won't hear it from either of mine. Second, you can be part of the solution. You can't say anymore that it doesn't happen in your community, because it did. It is your, sorry, I lost where I was. It doesn't happen in our community. It is your turn now to prevent this from happening to someone else. This is the time to instill boundaries. And lastly, if you have any more questions than you have answers to, I will be available in the U-House for a little bit to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for hearing my testimony.
Thank you, Hillary and David. Now I'd invite Don Rolfe forward to introduce today's offering.
Today's offering will go to the New Hope, a local domestic violence shelter. They run 2 confidential shelters and provide a series of resources to help people both while they're in the shelter and as they exit from the shelter. We hope you will support this critically important organization with your donations. If you are making a check donation as part of your pledge, please say so on the memo. Otherwise, the donation will go to New Hope. Thank you very much.
Now I'd invite forward Shirley Regan.
I'm proud to be part of this powerful service, to share my story today with my beloved community. Over the past couple months, it's been quite a journey pulling this together. Coming out publicly is ultimately an affirmation of our human connection with one another. According to BetterUp.com, human connection is a deep bond that's formed between people when they feel seen and valued. During an authentic human connection, people exchange positive energy with one another and build trust. Human connection makes you feel heard and understood and gives one a sense of belonging. My life broke open in 1981 when I discovered through cognitive therapy that I was a victim of emotional and sexual child abuse. I was the middle child of 5, and we all suffered within our biological family. Behind closed doors of an esteemed vice president of a prominent Western Massachusetts bank, my father tyrannized his 5 children. I spent my childhood reacting, hiding, pretending, and surviving, developing coping skills that no longer serve me as an adult. I sought therapy in 1981 after my second child was born terminally ill, and it was through that process I discovered my difficult past. Thus began my journey of acceptance, recovery, understanding, healing, and adjusting. 25 years of therapy helped me find compassion for my anxiety and depression. I practiced self-abusive behavior that kept me disassociated from my body. I lived in a magical world with the bad people on the outside and the good people hard to find. Through therapy, I learned to build a safe inner world so that as I healed, I could be more present in my life. More therapy led to more skills led to more awareness, and the healing continues. My relationship with myself is key. Loving my inner child helps me not abandon her. And I am able to heal in a compassionate and respectful way with love. I reparented myself, and now I belong. At present, my relationship with my siblings are difficult, to say the least. We are all wounded souls. My brother committed suicide. My 3 sisters struggle finding happiness and peace in their lives. We are all doing the best we can. It takes courage to be honest with oneself. It takes more courage to speak publicly, sharing our vulnerability to the outside world, all in the name of healing and educating others. I choose not to be a victim of my life. By changing my perspective, releasing limiting core beliefs and messages I adopted from my childhood, I am open to a world of incredible support. All that's needed is my intention and my willingness to do so. Thank you for your presence, for your willingness to participate in a difficult topic, and for supporting anyone who has this story to tell. You help create a safe space. You help others feel like they belong. The power of love helps the healing process. And I want to read a short poem by Peter Morgan called Moments of Freedom. And I stop for a second, like that moment when I awake before my mind starts working. and I stop. I see, I hear, I smell, I touch, I feel, I am. And it is just as it is for a second, and then, well then, I become my thoughts until I remember again to stop. Maybe the sound of the woodpecker, maybe the sight of the majestic stag, maybe the smell of the cold, damp dew, maybe the feel of the wind on my face reminds me to stop, reminds me to return to that place of stillness where darkness doesn't exist, only light, where freedom is a possibility for a split second, just being free, just being me. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Well, now I would invite Hillary back up to lead us all in the singing of Wake Now My Senses, which is number 298 in your gray hymnal. Please rise as you are willing and able.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth's call. Deep power of being and all. Keep with the web of creation your love. Giving, receiving, and love shows us how. Wake now my beats and reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Sitting still innate and praise the sublime. Wake now compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor, both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience with justice my guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted my privileged ways. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work towards our planet transformed by our care.
And friends, as we reflect on all that was spoken here today, please know that we are here to support you. Dr. Nancy Nienhaus, our pastoral care team, Hillary and Shirley will be next door at the U House for anyone who has so moved to join us. So if you would like, grab a quick cup of coffee downstairs and head over to the U House if you'd like to talk further. In closing, I'd like to leave you with the words of Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like the dust, I rise. You want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries, leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, I rise, I rise. I will now extinguish our chalice, but may its light and warmth stay in our hearts until we meet again. Here ends our worship. Let our service begin.